at the South Austin Museum of Popular Culture, there's a big blog of a review that you did of a Bob Dylan show in '65, and Dave Hickey's name is also on that masthead, a famous art critic. But could you speak a little bit about that Bob Dylan performance? It's a very curious article.
When Bob Dylan came to Austin in 1965, I knew his road manager, so I didn't really have a direct connection, but I thought, where would they stay? So I went to the biggest motel in town at the time. It was out on I-35 there. I forget what the name of it was, and I went up to the desk and said, "Is Bob Dylan here?" And they said, "No." And I said, "Could I look at the register book?" And they said, "Sure." And there was this group of 20 names or so, and they were all obviously pseudonyms. There was Puddin' and Tane was the first one, and then there was Chuck U. Farley was the second one, and so on for 20 names. And I said, "Oh yeah, that's my friends. What room are they in?" And they told me, and I walked out to the back of the motel, and there was Bob Dylan standing up on the balcony by himself looking out, and I was too shy or polite to just to approach him, so I called up and said, "Is Bob Newworth around?" That was my friend, that was his road manager at the time. And yeah, he went in, Dylan went inside and got Bob Newworth, who then introduced me to Mr. Dylan, and I asked him if I could do an interview for the student magazine, the Texas Ranger, and he was kind of reluctant, but they needed some favors. The drummer had lost his drums in between the concert in San Antonio and here in Austin, and they needed a set of drums, so who was it, Levon Helm? And I drove around Austin until we located a set of drums. We borrowed a set of drums from Stick Whipple, my old friend, and and then the guys in the band wanted some marijuana to smoke, so I had to scrounge around and find some marijuana for them. And I had brought a bottle of whiskey, and after I'd been running errands for them all day and drinking whiskey, I was pretty loaded, but so it was time for the interview, and I talked with Bob Dylan about folk music and rock music and so on, but I really wasn't very good at interviews, and I was pretty loaded, and the next day when I woke up, I couldn't remember anything we talked about in the interview, so I had to rewrite it all from scratch.
And you did a great job from that blown-up article that's on the wall at the South Austin Museum. So are there any final questions, Mr. Gilbert Shelton?
Yeah, could you speak a little bit about Oat Willie and how that happened? The governor's race, too, if you want.
Oat Willie store started out with the name of Underground City Hall. It was at 1606 Lavaca, and Joe Brown, Tony Bell, and I started it. And it shortly changed its name to Oat Willie's campaign headquarters when Henry Wallace Oat Willie Stouffer ran for mayor of Austin, and he did pretty well. He came in 4th out of 24 candidates, which isn't bad. And Henry Wallace Stouffer is still around and singing and playing his guitar. And after a few months, we sold this store to George Majeski here and Doug and Judy Brown, and I don't know, George sold his share to them, I think, later, but they're still running Oat Willies after, what would that be, 43 years?
The price was $75.
Oh, those were miserable times. Joe Brown would be the cashier, and he would keep the store open until he got enough to buy himself a bottle of whiskey, and then he would close up. But sometime that didn't even happen. And a bottle of whiskey was only $2.89 in those days.
So we've been very lucky to have you around the past week and a half or so. Do you have any final words for Austin or your impressions of it here in 2010?
Well, it's fun to be here. I haven't been back in 10 years, and so the skyline down here has changed a lot, and the traffic has gotten worse, but a lot of the old things are still around. It's nostalgic, and well, the best part is to meet all my old friends, the ones that are still around.
Yeah, well, again, we're lucky to have you, and it's been quite exciting to have you around. So thank you so much, Mr. Shelton.
My pleasure. Thank you.